My name is Al Martinez-Fonts, and I'm the former Assistant Secretary for the Private Sector Office at the Department of Homeland Security. I now work as a fellow at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I believe the business case for resilience says that the money that a company spends to make itself better prepared to be more resilient should be viewed as an investment and not just an expense. So the theory here is that you are going to spend some money, let's call it a small amount of money. I've used the example of a stitch in time saves 9. You're going to spend that one stitch right now, and the reward really comes out in the future when something happens, when something catastrophic, whether it's man-made or natural, happens. And so if you want to call it the business case, is you should spend a little bit of money now in order to avoid having to spend a lot of money in the future. You know, resilience is a sort of a funny word. It has become very popularized, certainly in the last few years. And what it does is it takes in some of the what we used to call preparedness, what we call response, and what we call recovery. So it goes across the board. And so companies at one time used to talk about being prepared or having the ability to respond to an issue or something, or in the future, recovering. Today, we tend to use the term resilient. And so the ability of a company to have done some work, again, up front, before the event happens, almost trying, which is what makes it so difficult, to foresee the unforeseen, although we have a pretty good idea when it comes to natural disasters. When a hurricane hits, we know what's going to happen. When a tornado hits, when there's a flood, etc. When it's a terrorist attack or a man-made type of thing, generally we're not as ready for that, or it could be, especially if someone intends to do us really serious harm, we may have to do some other things. But so the ability, the concept of resilience goes from the preparedness aspect to the recovery and phases them all in together and allows a company to be able to handle the shock, recover from it, and take advantage of getting back on its feet as quickly as possible. I believe that not only that there are ways to do it, I mean there are many, many ways to do it, everything from ready.gov to some other very good sites. The Red Cross has some very good information. I mean, it's not for lack of information. What it really takes is a willingness on the part of the individual, and by the way, companies can help those individuals that are their employees by facilitating their getting ready. But at the end of the day, it really is that individual resilience, that ability of the individual, let's say, employee, and then as part of an office team or a factory team, and then a company's ability to get back on its feet, that really is so important. So when you think about resilience at any level, it begins with individuals having that resilient mindset. It's very interesting. I happen to believe that a lot of it is almost psychological. People really don't believe some of these things are going to happen. So again, hurricanes in the Gulf Coast, hurricanes in Florida, floods in the Midwest, fires on the West Coast. I mean, these things happen every year. So people are almost sort of like gambling with their fate in the future. And so again, I think it's almost a psychological issue. Now, having said that, one of the areas where I think that either government could help and private sector could help itself is by taking a look and doing some of the work that's been done in trying to create incentives for doing the right thing. So the government has come out, the Department of Homeland Security, with PS Prep, private sector preparedness. It's a voluntary program, but what happens to companies once they get that certification? I think it'll be a real positive when they do that. We've been working with the insurance industry and the banking industry. What could the insurance industry, which is very well known for doing this, if you have a fire alarm in your home, you'll get a discount from your insurance company. Well, what other issues could be done? I think part of what we're trying to do, and I think what I don't want to say the insurance industry is waiting for them, is where are some of the standards? How do you measure that someone is prepared versus that someone is not? And so that's where some of, again, that choke point issue comes in. I think if we could simplify it, and it's not a simple issue, but if we could simplify it so individuals could become prepared, again, what organizations, so it could be schools, it could be NGOs, it could be businesses, the government itself, how does it become, and then at the end of the day you end up with a sort of a, I like to call it a bubble of resilience around an entire community. So you've got a community, and then eventually as communities become resilient, you've got a nation that is resilient. As you may know, I was a banker for 30 years, and not because I did that, but the banking industry has done a remarkable job, and most of it has been self-policing. They have decided, given that they were at the epicenter of 9/11, and many of their operation centers, either fell down, were disconnected, et cetera. They've done a remarkable job of resilience. So they've now spread out. They're way outside of the city, way outside of metropolitan areas. They've got backup systems. They've got the ability to get back up and running in minimal time. And so a lot of that is, for the major banks, so the banking industry. But one very specific story that I remember in 2004, you may recall that Florida got hit with 4 hurricanes. This was before Katrina, the year before Katrina. And in Punta Gorda, I don't remember the name of the bank, but there was a bank there that had actually taken and very, very seriously prepared, and again, I'm not sure we called it resilience at that time, but really had become very resilient. And they had a whole manual of what they were going to do, how they were going to take care of their employees, by the way. And it wasn't just the employees, but the employees and their families to get those people in. Then they were going to look after their customers, and then they were going to look after the community. And this bank was able to get themselves up and running within 24 hours after the hurricane had hit. They had managed to get all of the families to report in, make sure everybody was safe and sound. They had somebody to stay with the family. And that is, to me, I mean, this is it was a small bank, as I recall, but it's just a great example of people putting their head together, thinking about it, thinking about what if, when that hurricane hits, what are we going to do, and what are the processes that we are going to use to get back on. And so the result was that at the end of the day, they were not only able to help themselves, their clients, but the community. And so they went way beyond, the call of duty. And if we could get, if you can think of this multiplying and every business being that ready, we'd be in great shape.